Hi, I'm Maya. I work as a photographer on cruise ships. It sounds like a dream job. Endless ocean, sunsets every evening. But last summer, on a ship called the Ocean Whisper, that dream turned into something I still can't explain. It started on our 4th night at sea. I was taking routine shots of the ship's wake at sunset. Something about the golden light and churning waves always made for perfect photos. But when I reviewed the images later, I noticed something strange. Shapes were floating around, looking like faces. They were blurry at first, but there they were, staring straight at the camera. I showed them to Jonah, the ship's engineer. He laughed it off at first and said it must be reflections or bad pixels. But as the days passed, the faces in the wake got clearer and angrier. And the ship started acting up. Lights flickering, doors jamming, and full-on power cuts in the lower decks. Jonah was running diagnostics 24/7, muttering about systems he couldn't control. Then I stumbled upon something during a late-night research spiral, the SS Watertown, a cargo ship from the 1920s. The ship struck with lightning in a storm, and most of the crew members died on board. And soon after, their faces started appearing in the waters behind the ship. The remaining passengers and crew went mad. That ship vanished after its final voyage, presumed lost at sea. I couldn't shake the feeling that our ship was cursed, like something had latched onto us, feeding off the fear. When Jonah looked at the security cam footage, a chilling image flickered on the engine room security screen. Jonah's face, aged and unsettling, its eyes burning with a red glow. Last night, I swear, the ship felt alive. People were getting sick. Some started sleepwalking. I locked myself in my cabin with my camera and watched the waves from the porthole. They hadn't moved. Their stares were fixed, their smiles unwavering and unsettling. We made it back, but not everyone did. And even now, years later, I can't stand walking near open water. Sometimes, when I'm alone on a quiet street, I still feel them behind me watching.
My name is Captain Thomas Reid. I've been on the water more than I've been on land. Storms, wars, engine failures, I've seen it all. But I've never experienced anything like what happened on my last voyage. It started before we even left shore. A few nights before I boarded, I had this dream, or maybe it was more than that. I walked into a room I didn't recognize, small with metal walls, humming with this deep vibration. The air was heavy, and in the corners were shadows. Not just darkness, but shapes, staring at me. I couldn't move, I just stood there as they pressed around me, hundreds of dark faces staring at me. I woke up gasping. I brushed it off, and think maybe it is because of stress. But once the cruise began, things didn't feel right. The ship itself was too quiet. On the second night, I was in the engine room doing a late systems check. I remember sitting down for a moment, just to catch my breath. Next thing I know, I'm in the dining hall, sitting at a table. A half-eaten plate of food was in front of me, no memory of leaving the engine room. My hands were greasy and still smelled like diesel. The crew thought I was sleepwalking. I tried to believe that, but then it happened again. I was reading navigation reports in my quarters. I glanced up, and suddenly I was standing on the lower deck, outside the storage hold. No shoes and no idea how I got there. I hadn't even opened that door all day. Then, 2 nights later, I came to while leaning over the edge of the railing, mid-deck, staring down into the black water. 1 more inch and I would have gone over. That's when I started digging into the ship's logs. I needed to know if something had happened on this vessel before. And I found it. The last captain died on this very cruise. The official report says he slipped and struck his head on a stairwell near the bridge. There were no witnesses. He was found the next morning by a steward. The crew had chalked it up to fatigue or age. But that death, it didn't feel right. It felt like a warning I didn't hear. I finally brought it up to Dr. Salazar and a couple of senior crew members I trusted. I didn't want to sound like I'd lost it, but I laid it all out, my lapses, the dream, the strange locations I'd woken up in. The engineer, Martinez, brushed it off. But Salazar, he looked pale and quiet after hearing this. He said she'd been hearing footsteps outside the infirmary each night. And once he found all the surgical tools laid out perfectly, like someone had prepared for an operation. Except he was alone. After that, the others admitted small things. Martinez once woke up in the laundry room, even though he swore he'd gone to bed in his cabin. We kept the passengers in the dark. They were sipping cocktails and watching musicals. I made it through the voyage. We all did, but it changed something in me. Even now, months later, I sometimes catch myself drifting. My wife says I've started walking around the house at night, and every so often, I hear knocking. At exactly 3:07 a.m.
I'm Anya. I work cleaning shifts on cruise ships, mostly during their off-season or in between voyages. It's not glamorous, but it pays okay, and I get a few peaceful days alone on board. Or at least that's how it used to be. This happened on the MV Carpathia, a ship that once served as a quarantine vessel during a viral outbreak decades ago. Most of that history was kept quiet, but I'd heard the whispers, people confined for weeks, some never making it back home. But I didn't think much of it. Until I was assigned to clean it alone for 4 days. The first night was quiet. Empty halls, the hum of generators, and the ocean outside. Nothing I wasn't used to, but around 2 a.m., I started hearing footsteps, soft, dragging ones. I assumed it was a crew member or maybe a late technician. But when I peeked out of the laundry area, there was no one. I even called out. But there was nothing, just silence. The odd thing was, they didn't sound like normal footsteps. They were slow, uneven, like someone injured or exhausted. The second night, it got worse. I was mopping near the infirmary, an area that still smelled faintly of alcohol and bleach, when I heard faint and desperate whispering, like someone was talking just behind the door. I opened it. But the room was empty. There were no windows, no speakers, nothing that could explain it. I was shaken, so I went to the only other person still on board with me. A man named Elias, the ship's historian. He'd been working on restoring old records and logs for the cruise company. I asked if he knew anything about the infirmary. He hesitated first, but then told me the truth. During the quarantine period, this ship had been full, packed with patients. Many of them were isolated in their rooms for weeks. The medical staff were overworked, and some barely slept. Some passengers died without anyone even noticing for days. Worse, a few weren't even documented. They'd sealed off entire decks at one point. After hearing this, I wanted to leave. I really did, but it was only one more night, and I needed the pay. That night, I brought my cleaning gear to the top deck. I thought it would be safer open air. But the silence was different. Not peaceful but heavy, and at 2:41 a.m., every single cabin light in the hallway below me turned on, one after another. I didn't go down. I stayed there until dawn, hugging my knees, listening to coughing echo through the walls. When I finally left the ship the next morning, Elias was already waiting on the pier. He told me he'd seen someone standing in the mirror behind him the night before. A woman in an old cruise uniform. Her lips were moving, but there was no sound. When he turned around, the room was empty. I haven't taken a cleaning job since. But sometimes, when I walk through a quiet street, I still hear those soft, dragging footsteps. And once, just once, I passed a mirror in a hotel lobby and saw someone standing behind me.